Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ, coming at you. We're going to talk barbecue competition. We're going to talk about cutting hair. We're going to talk about Tucker's upcoming move. So much is covered in this episode of JJ Meets World. And hey, don't forget, yell at your radio. Sometimes we can hear you, sometimes we can't. It depends on how our clairvoyance is going that day. Sit back, enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Here's the deal. Okay, so haircuts. We all use them and all do them, but we couldn't be more different in the way we choose to do our haircuts.
Are you saying you and I in particular from each other, or everyone?
I guarantee you and I have completely different experiences when it comes to the cutting of our hairs.
100%. Yes.
Right. So describe a haircut to me. Like if you were going to tell me about your haircut, tell me about it.
I walk into the bathroom and I grab my buzzers, my trimmers, whatever you want to call them, and I buzz my head, and then I take a shower.
And that's it.
That's it. I'm a bald man. It's very easy for us. Now, that's like, that's me going, I want to save $20, that's what that is. Otherwise, I would just go pay someone $20 to do the same thing. And I usually would go to Men's Hair World, but it's been a while since I've been back there. So I might treat myself for this next haircut because it does feel great, to have someone else do that. But it's pretty simple. I've been getting advertised to a lot on Instagram. Instagram has been a really, what am I trying to say here? They know how to advertise to me, right? They see
they know
my
how to
browsing
influence your choices.
They browse they see my browsing history. They see like the things that I've saved. I've even bought things because I've seen them on Instagram. My Grip 6 belt. I love that thing. Got that through Instagram. And so I'm getting a lot of, hair trimmers for bald men that are supposed to make the whole process a lot easier and smoother. And I'm kind of doing my research on that because my hair, even though I don't have much of it, what I do have grows really fast. And so I really should be doing that once a week to keep I don't bick it. I don't shave it down to the skin. I just buzz it. And the hair trimmer that I've got is fine, but it's getting dull. And it's about time for me to invest in something better. So probably I'm going to find one that if it becomes highly recommended, and go with that. But that's it, man. That's all I do. I don't do what you do, which is get it not just cut, but styled.
Do you use your trimmer on other parts of your body?
I use it. Just on my face.
Okay, so you use it on your head and your beard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really trim the rest of my gorilla-like body hair. I should.
You're not taking time to wherever, might be downtown, might be uptown, might be at the bypass.
Every small once in a while, if it feels like, that's getting kind of crazy, I might do a little bit of a trim, but that's rare.
Okay.
Who am I trying to impress, JJ? I don't know.
And here sometimes it's not just to impress somebody. Sometimes it's just like what feels good, right?
Right. But if you're someone who has a lot of body hair and then you cut it, like let's say you just shave it off, the next month is like itchy city. Like it just sucks. So if you have body hair, you're pretty much like, unless you're going to shave it every other day, which would be a huge process. You just let it grow. It feels a lot better. I understand it when women are like, fuck it, I'm not going to shave my legs or my armpits. That sucks. It's like, yeah, you're right. That does suck.
Yeah. I know a girl in my life, and it's not my wife. I'm going to specify that, but a girl in my life who told me a story about how shaving armpits suck because sometimes you're in a hurry, and she was talking about shaving her armpits and she was in a hurry. And as she went from armpit A to armpit B, she accidentally grazed her nipple and sliced a chunk of it off.
She was not paying attention. Nipple injuries just make me cringe. That's why I'll never get those things pierced.
Right. Yeah. I'm constantly worried about, gosh, what do people think about JJ's acceptance of nipple injuries? And I'm against it. I'm against it in all ways, shapes, and forms.
Anti-nipple injury.
Yeah. I think that we need to be nicer about them and we need to protect them in all cases. And, that's just what it is.
Now you get your hair styled though, right?
I do. So
you get it styled.
Here's what I love about getting my hairs cut. I never was someone who went to like a barber. Here's the evolution of JJ Gordon getting his haircut. I went to a place as a kid called Salon 1330, which I think is just the address. And they had chairs that were shaped like a spaceship and a panda, and so it was awesome.
Like a race car.
Yeah. And so like you would get your haircut there, and then they had some TVs that were playing things like Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas and other like fun Muppet Fair.
This place was dialed into the JJ thing.
My God, if they would have had like a skee ball machine in there, I would have had my birthday parties there. Now here's the problem. I loved it so much that I clearly had aged out of going to this children's salon and was still getting my hair cut there.
Okay.
So when it came time to be like, okay, so what's the next evolution? What are you going to do? I remember my dad being like, okay, well, I'll take him to the barbershop I go to. Did not care for my barbershop experience. Couple of reasons. Number one, they allowed smoking in there. So when I went in, there were two old guys smoking a cigar and one guy smoking a pipe. And I did not care for that. And also they had this stuff that I like obviously was supposed to be like comforting, but was not to me. So there was a device that this guy slipped over his middle three fingers on his hand, and it looked like a big like ball, like he was putting a tennis ball on top of this, and it had little finger holes, and it's old, and it had a cord plugged into the wall. Well, it like made his hand like vibrate, like it was and so like he was giving me like a back rub with it, and I was like, this is awful, stop. And so he was like, oh, you don't like this thing? And so then he grabbed a giant machine that was like a 2x4 with 4 of these things on it. And then he was using that to like get my entire shoulder. And I was like, this is even worse, dude. So I didn't end up going to the barbershop again. And I should also note that it was about this time when I stopped doing my hair as just straight spiked up. That was my hair for a lot of years.
That was a lot of kids' hair. We thought that was bitching.
Yeah. In fact, I tried to do it recently, and I'm like, oh, so my 38-year-old hair certainly doesn't want to do that.
I have a photo of me in the second grade with a spike and a massive rat tail that went down between my shoulder blades.
Oh, I would love to see that.
I got to find that thing. Yeah.
That would be swell. So I end up going to the person who's cutting my mom's hair at the time, who was a family friend. Like she was someone who was really well known by a relation, and she had gone into the hair cutting business. And I saw her for like 13, 14 years with the odd, like every now and then I wouldn't make like an appointment in time, and I'd be going somewhere, and I have a wedding that I was attending. And so I'd end up going to like, a walk-in essentially.
Gotcha.
And I never enjoyed my walk-in experience because it is forcing small talk with somebody who really doesn't care. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, we don't have to do this. But we still.
You've got the scissors. I've got the hair. Let's make this happen.
I will read this outdated People magazine and find something and rip a page out of it because I want to try making squash soup. So once I get in with this hairstylist, I realize that there's something that no one tells you about getting your hair cut if you have a single person and that's consistent. You get a confidant. You get somebody who you can tell your innermost secrets to.
Sure.
Now, the nice thing about my stylist was she always had her own Like her salon was a bunch of different, not cubicles, but like little tiny rooms. So you weren't in like a giant area where it's open and other people could listen to your conversations and stuff like that.
Okay.
It was one-on-one. And Tammy and I, like, great friendship, right? Like awesome stuff. We had a wonderful time talking, and she would remember stuff and she'd ask questions. And honest to God, I feel like some of the greatest talks I've ever had were with Tammy, because I also don't feel any pressure. I felt like I could be totally myself around her and I don't have to turn on any airs because she's looking at my hairs.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you have to have a lot of trust in that person because they're using sharp implements around your head.
Right. 100%. I am trusting that this person is not going to nip a chunk of my ear off. I'm also trusting that this person is not going to make me look bad.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that's going into it, right?
And I guess if there's also the notion of you go to them often, I've always, when I used to have hair and I would have like, I want it cut a certain way, I would never get it right because I always had a different person cutting it every single time. Well, like once you get past that first haircut with someone and you like what they did and you go back to them, then the communication's real easy. They understand what you like and they know how to get it right. And you can just be assured that it's going to happen correctly.
My grandmother went to the same woman every other Friday for 25 years. And that was her thing, right? Is that she would get styled up on a Friday so that she'd be good looking all weekend, whether she was going to play bingo at Dakota Magic or coming down to the lake, whatever it was. And I realized that my grandmother, in the time I knew her, her hair never changed. Like she found that style and she found someone she clearly liked, and it remained the same for decades.
It's cartoon logic. You need the character to have the same haircut.
Right. Oh, 100%. Like that's the beauty of like the cartoon world is once you find the clothing and the hairstyle, like, you know, why mess with success?
Right.
So I used this woman for a long time. Then I moved to Chicago and I had to find somebody else, you know, for a little bit of time. And I'll be honest, like, you know, I had some real missteps. One of my haircuts down there, just I thought I looked really bad afterwards and I got really self-conscious. And so I stopped cutting my hair for a year, and it got to be about shoulder length, very poofy.
I have plenty of photos of that.
You do. And I also stopped shaving at one point, so I had this big neck beard as well.
That may be our thumbnail. You never know.
Oh, I was also going to say I could give you the spiked hair picture too. So
yes, please.
We'll
let's do both.
A little side by side.
Yeah.
So the thing about that is I didn't really care about my long hair at the time or my neck beard. And one day I was working a Take Two video, which had these floor to ceiling windows, and it was nighttime and the light was on inside the store. And I caught my reflection as I was walking briskly across the store, and I saw my hair billowing out in the reflection. And I looked at it and went like, oh my God, you are disgusting. What are you doing? Good God, have some self-respect. So I end up going and getting a haircut. And at that time, I had a friend who was just getting into the world of cutting hair. And so I was like, hey, listen, could I get a haircut? Like, I'm going to shave, but could I get a haircut with you? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. And I felt like I had moved back from Chicago, so I was kind of like feeling this out. Also, I was like super broke, and the stylist I had been going to for a long time, the way I'd get my haircut was kind of unique, where my mom would have an appointment right before me or my sister, and then my mom would just cover the appointment, right? Like she'd be like, oh, and here's a credit card and just, you know, JJ's haircut. So I actually didn't know what a haircut cost from this woman until I had to pay for it myself. And I'm like, oh my God, that is like half a month's rent. Oh, dear Lord. Because it is expensive to get haircut sometime.
It is?
It is. Oh, it can be very expensive.
Half a month's rent?
I was getting a cut and color.
So,
okay. Yep,
yeah,
that's right.
You're in a different stratosphere than me when it comes to hair.
I was getting highlights, all sorts of stuff like that.
Take care of those roots.
Yeah, and at one point, you know, like if your roots start to grow out, then it's a cycle, right? So you get your hair dyed, and then your hair in its natural color starts coming out, and so you got to keep dyeing it. Otherwise, you have this awkward situation. And even if you decide like, listen, I'm going to let it go to its natural color. Well, at one point you got to grow enough inches where you can cut off all the stuff you had dyed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just rough stuff, man. It's rough stuff. So I get this new lady who becomes my stylist for a while, and her prices are lower because she's just starting out. And we have a wonderful time. And now I kind of bob back and forth between them. But I'm kind of thinking maybe it's time for me to think of a new stylist. And I don't know what that means. I don't know who I'm going to go to. I know that I've pretty much 100% landed on what my hairstyle is, which is I swoop it back and then I give a little volume to it. Bada bing, bada boom. That's it.
Gotcha.
You know, and I think it's a pretty good style. I think it's pretty notable when you see me, but it doesn't allow me to do a lot of other stuff with it. So
Right.
I can't do a really cool like pompadour up front or something like that.
I mean,
I'll
never say
look
never.
like Elvis.
But who will, right?
I mean, you could. I bet we could do you up like Elvis.
We would need some hardcore science to make that happen.
Well, I mean, not like the good Elvis, like the died on his toilet Elvis.
Yeah, that one. Or like Elvis as an infant.
Yeah, there you
Baby Elvis. Yeah, I can pull out baby Elvis, I'm sure.
So to me, getting your haircut is like, here's the thing I love the most about my haircut is I love somebody else washing my hair. Oh,
That does feel amazing.
it is so good. And like the way that they kind of use both hands and it's kind of like a head scratch almost as they're getting that shampoo all the way down. And one of the things I love is the lather, rinse, repeat. And so I'm like, not only am I getting my hair like shampooed, but here comes the conditioner. Yes. And I just love that whole experience. And it's also a time when I feel very vulnerable when I fall asleep in front of people, which is why it doesn't happen on a very regular basis. But
didn't someone like take a photo of you sleeping one time?
Yeah, and I did not care for that. I'm very vulnerable when I'm asleep. So
all people are.
Right. Yeah, we all are. And I'm one of those people too who like I fall asleep so heavy that you don't like I'm not going to wake up. Right. So if you like walk into the room and like bang a pot, I'm going to go and I'm right back at it. So what I worry about when I get my hair cut is I've learned to embrace the fact that when I get the shampoo, I close my eyes. And people could be sneaking up on me at that time.
Yeah.
People could be dangling stuff all over in front of me. Like, I mean, there's a lot that can go on. So
imagine being like a high profile target, someone who would be kidnapped or murdered.
Oh,
like,
big time.
And then you then have to really vet the person trimming your hair big time. Because they could, Barber of Seville you kind of thing.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Or Sweeney Todd me.
There we go. Sweeney Todd.
And not even like a coy Sweeney Todd. Like you could literally just go and get like, oh, I had a salad for lunch and here's the, knife I used. And
that's how not into musicals I am. I couldn't even say the correct phrase.
Of Sweeney Todd. Like,
yeah. And I'm directing a musical. How terrible is that?
He's the demon barber of Fleet Street.
Yeah.
So I love getting my hair cut. And here's the other thing, too. I've also arrived at a point in my life where I'm so vain where I want people to comment on it afterwards. Like, hey, did you get a haircut? And this is a pro tip for people out there. I'll tell you a social norm. If you're going to ask someone if they got a haircut, you need to include a complimentary phrase with it. Because if I look at you and I go, did you get a haircut? You instantly, I think, are going to go towards the like, oh, they don't like it because they didn't say anything. So I'm like, hey, your hair looks great. Did you just get it cut?
I always just say, I just say your hair looks nice. And then that's an opportunity for them to say, oh, I just got it cut or this happened or that happened. Have you ever been in the boat where you were in a relationship with someone and you didn't comment on the hair and they got really upset with you because of that?
Yes, but not in the suggestion that you have, which is I was the one who got the cut and didn't get something. That's my problem is that my wife never compliments my hair when I get it cut. And I make a point of being like, well, I got a haircut today, so I'll be home a little bit late after my haircut.
let's go a little deeper here, JJ. How
Yeah.
often does your wife compliment you?
And
About what?
Okay, not as much as I would like.
Do you compliment her?
Here's the things. Jill has given me some of the greatest compliments I've ever had in my life. For example, one time she looked at me and it was there was a state of chaos going on in our like family life, and I thrive in chaos. And so I'm the guy who's like, listen, we'll get this handled. We're good to go. Okay, here's the plan. We're going to do this. And she goes, you're really good in a bad situation. And I was like, thank you. I really appreciate that.
I would agree with her assessment. You are very good in a bad situation.
Thank you.
And that is a huge compliment.
It really is, because I know plenty of people who like just shut down, and that's just fine too. We all handle these things differently. So to me, that was a huge compliment. She also constantly tells me that I need to be humbler than I am. So that's not a compliment.
That's like, that's the exact opposite.
Yeah, right. So yeah, she compliments me, not as much as I think that I deserve. But then it wouldn't be a true compliment, right?
Do you compliment her?
I do all the time.
Like what are some of the classic Jill compliments that she gets from you?
She'll fish for compliments with something like, oh, I wish that this outfit looked better. And I'm like, I think that outfit looks great. You look great in it.
But she's fishing for them, right? They're not coming unsolicited. What are some unsolicited compliments you give her?
Like the other day, I noticed that she had like tidied up part of the house, and I'm like, oh, the house looks really good. You do a really good job, when it comes to like these deep cleans. Or, I'll be like, you're really amazing with children. Like, you are such a great, like you just grab the opportunity to like connect with kids. And that's awesome. I also thank her a lot. I'm a profuse thanker. So I feel like I give her a lot of positive attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of compliments do you get that you like, Tucker? Like, is there something that sticks out?
I'm not actually around. This is going to sound super sad, but I'm actually not around people enough to receive compliments for the most part. Just because, living alone and then also working in kind of a solitary fashion, most of my day, I'm not. Hey, cats! My cats are fighting.
Oh,
maybe the best compliments I get are when my cats think I'm snuggly, and they're like, "I want to snuggle up on you right now." Actually, recently my mom gave me a really massive compliment that made me feel really, really good. My grandfather, her dad, Grandpa McDonald, was someone who was really known to have this very serene, calming presence at all times. And he was someone I really looked up to. And as a kid, I remember looking at him and going, I want to have the same effect on people that Grandpa has. Now, I don't have that yet, but my mom was said to me on the phone the other day, she said, of all the men in our family, of which there are many of them, she said, I'm the only one who's able to, from time to time, capture that spirit of Grandpa for her, where if she's feeling like life is chaotic and then I come in to talk to her about it, I can have that calming presence on her that my grandfather used to have. And I was like, that is the biggest compliment I've received in decades, Mom. Thank you. Because I've had really positive male role models in my life. My dad, my grandfather, teachers, things like that. And every one of them, there's always something about them that I want to make sure I carry along with me. With my dad, it's his empathy and his loyalty and his willingness to sacrifice for those he loves. I want to be able to match that someday. And with my grandfather on my mom's, I didn't know my grandpa on my dad's side, so I can't really speak to him, but my grandpa on my mom's side was someone who he was always able to keep a really cool level head. And he was someone who kind of radiated this sort of quiet strength, if you know what I'm talking about. And so that's something that I aspire to be able to have someday, is to be someone who, when someone comes to me with an issue, they feel like I'm a, not just that they feel, but that I am like a solid calming presence. So I'll get there one day, but my mom says I'm making progress on it. So that was a big compliment.
Oh, that's a great compliment. I would also like to compliment you. Yesterday, we were together on a movie shoot.
Yeah, it was fun. You were hilarious, by the way.
Thank you so much. I felt I felt unprepared. And, it's funny, when I accepted that role, he said, do you want me to give you the lines? And I'm like, no, I'll just deal with it when I get there.
No, yeah, you were great.
Thank you. Well, see,
And
and look, I was trying to compliment you, and you're throwing compliments towards me already.
Sorry, go ahead.
But what I like is I've worked with you on several times when you've been, at the helm of either the camera or directing what's going on. And you are great from the get-go, but you have grown so much on a set that I felt completely comfortable that I didn't have to worry about anything because you were going to take care of it. I knew you were going to make me look good in all the shots. And if there was something wrong, you were going to give me a nice way to correct it. It felt there was no chaos, which I think is awesome. Sir. And so I wanted to compliment you on that. And that's such a fun project you're working on that.
Yeah,
this must kind of be fueling your soul a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just finished filming it yesterday, and it's I won't go into too much detail until he talks about it, but it's a film by Toby Jones, previous guest Toby Jones, and he approached me back in the summer, said, hey, I'm going to be in Fargo. I've written a film. I want to shoot the first 15 minutes of it and try to make that into a short. Do you want to work on it? And I just said, hell yes, I do. And so I've been the director of photography and one of the producers on it. And yesterday was our last day of filming. So we shot over 15 days. We shot almost 4 terabytes of footage. I just finished tabulating it this morning.
Whoa.
Yeah, right. But yeah, no, that's been a really fun project. Yeah, as you were talking, JJ, about yesterday's film shoot, it reminded me, I told them a story about a compliment that you once received that I would wager is probably one of, if not the greatest compliments you've ever received. And it was from the daughter, I believe, of John Candy.
Yes. Yep. From Jennifer Candy.
What did she say?
I
remember you telling the story in that it was that she said that you reminded her of her dad.
Yeah. So I met her at a Second City function in Toronto because she for a while, I think she wanted to follow in her dad's footsteps. And there was, if you were part of the Second City family, they invited everyone up to improvise afterwards. So I got to do a scene, and at the kind of mingling afterwards, she said that I reminded her of her dad, which is one of the most amazing compliments ever. And I've read a lot about John Candy and the fact that one of the things that he is most giving is he allows other people to kind of to have the spotlight, and he'll push them into the spotlight a little bit. And so I approach that with my improvisation. So, for example, if I see a character who I can tell this person, this person's got more that they need to say, I will prompt them to say more. And I will get something out of them that they maybe didn't get, before. And I won't try and drive the scene. I will be the best damn co-pilot ever. I got some juice. You want some juice? How about this? I got a map. Switching up the CDs, no sweat. I will make you look like a rock star on my side. And to me, that compliment from Jennifer Candy, I mean, it's a world changer. It's a life changer in a lot of ways. And even yesterday, when I was putting on the outfit that I was wearing in the short, I heard one of the other people who were in the scene say, sorry, folks, park's closed. And that is literally the costume I was wearing when I was playing John Candy's character from the movie Vacation.
How far are you in your John Candy costume project? You've done that character. You've done Barf.
I've done Uncle Buck. I've done Del Griffith from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Have you done the character from Home Alone? I think you did.
I have. That was last year. And I had a Kenosha Kickers jacket made. So his jacket from that. I've got a woman working on a smoking jacket for me to play Johnny LaRue this year.
Nice.
Which I'm pretty excited. And then I also did the Great Outdoors, which is it's the most worthless of all the costumes because it's pretty much just like a cardigan with a shirt. And, I couldn't finish my shotgun lamp in time to make it really good.
Would you ever add the cop he plays in Blues Brothers?
Yeah, I absolutely would. In fact, that's one of the things coming like in the pipeline. Now, like part of the problem is that there are a couple of years, like for example, the year I played Del Griffith, people were like, and who are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm John Candy, or they'd come up and be like, oh, are you Mr. Belvedere? And I was like, no, I'm holding shower curtain rings, you dumbo. Like I'm clearly from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I'm Del Griffith. And so,
Man, I haven't dressed up for Halloween in a long time.
what was the last costume? Do you remember?
I think it. Oh, you know what? It was Resla and I had thrown a mini Halloween party, so it wasn't our normal Release the Beast one. But I had dressed up as both Professor X and Lex Luthor. I wore a suit. I bicked my head and got rid of the beard, and I had a wheelchair with me. And when I was sitting in the wheelchair, I was Professor X, and when I was standing, I was Lex Luthor.
Oh, that's smart.
That was it, though. And that was 6 years ago, maybe.
Oh my. See,
And I've always had big dreams of costumes I've wanted to do, but I just never put in the time to do them.
I'm a big fan of handing out like candy. I love handing out candy. And so I figure like if the kids are going to be dressed, I might as well be dressed.
Right.
When it comes to like, here's the other thing. One of the other things I like about John Candy is I've got the hair for John Candy to bring this thing full circle.
Oh, for sure.
Because he is a man who had a very distinct hairstyle that was pretty simple, you know, and if they needed something crazy, they put him underneath a wig, which is fine. Well, how do you feel about wigs? You ever wear any wigs? You ever wig out?
As part of a costume, I think they're great. If someone's trying to pass that off as your hair look, I think that's ridiculous. My mom dated a guy once who had a wig, and I just thought, I can't respect this guy until he gets rid of this fucking wig. Just if you are bald, just be bald. You know, that's how it looks. For men, I can understand it. It's different for women. I understand, but for men, it's like if you're bald, just go bald. Don't wear the wig. It looks ridiculous.
When does a wig become a toupee?
I think it's when. I mean, I the way I see it is that it's when you're trying to say as a male, this is my actual hair.
So men don't wear wigs; they wear toupees.
I think it might be maybe, I don't know. I have to dive into the phrasing behind it. Maybe it's something like Kleenex, which just became synonymous with tissue, but it was a brand. Maybe toupee was a brand. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like it's a French word, right?
You know
like
what? We're not going to let this sit. We're going to go to Wikipedia right now.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to tell you about my 3 favorite wigs. I wore a wig for my Barf costume, which was, you know, because Barf is half man, half dog. He's his own best friend.
Right.
And so the wig had built in like dog ears and stuff. And so that one was great. And that one, I spent like $45 on that thing. And it was probably the most expensive wig I've ever owned. Another one is I was in a play where I had to be a really old man. So I just bought this standard like old man wig, right? Like it's an old man gray wig. Sure. And I looked good in it. Good enough that like even after the scene was done in the play, I just like kept it on for a while and wore it to the, you know, the cast party. And, you know, I wanted to get as much out of that wig as I possibly could. The last one is a wig that I actually don't own, but somebody else does. And Jill, for Halloween a few years ago, went as Jareth the Goblin King, which was David Bowie's character from Labyrinth. And she bought the official David Bowie Labyrinth wig, and it looked awesome. Like, I am incredibly impressed at how good this thing looks. And so that is one where we actually bought like a styrofoam head and we put it into a special box so it wouldn't get crushed. Because that's the problem, right? If you own a wig, most of the time it gets crushed after your initial use of it, and then it's gonzo. And so, what are you going to do?
It kind of looks like Wikipedia is saying all toupees are wigs, but not all wigs are toupees.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of what I'm getting here. It says a toupee is a hairpiece or partial wig of natural or synthetic hair worn to cover partial baldness or for theatrical purposes. But you know, there are 2 separate articles for these things. There's a toupee article and a wig article. So it kind of sounds like it wasn't necessarily a brand name, but it was more or less sort of a specific kind of wig, mostly aimed at men to cover baldness, like partial baldness. Because you're never when your hair falls out, it's not like all of the hair falls out. It's just like it's going to be on the top going back from your forehead. And so it looks they have a side-by-side photo of Carl Reiner with and without a toupee. So it looks like
a famous episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show, where he buys a bunch of toupees.
There's a famous episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza tries out a toupee and thinks it looks pretty good.
Well, there's an episode of 30 Rock where Pete wears a toupee and Alec Baldwin wants him to continue wearing it. I mean, people and men in toupees over years have really gone hand in hand. And I feel like in the last 20 years, we've really embraced baldness. We can, I think, thank Bruce Willis partially for that.
Right.
And, people are like, no, I'm bald. I'm making a choice to be bald. And they're the people who say like, nope, I'm going to cling on to the little bit of hair I have left. And that's all right. And the people who go full bald, whatever you want to do. But we really learned during COVID, I think, that hair doesn't make the person, right? Like there are people who grew their hair out long because they didn't go into a barbershop or a hair cuttery. And they're like, God, I really like having this long hair and I like looking like a hippie. And so also long hair and hippie, why do those things go hand in hand? Is because they're like, we don't believe in scissors, man. We don't want to destruct God's great glory of hair, man.
Right. I mean, I think it was just a rejection of their parents from the 50s who had very clean cut hair. I remember as a young adult, when I realized that my hair was receding and that I was going to lose it at some point and how sick to my stomach that made me. And for about a year, I was always looking for like any product I could find that would slow it down. Obviously, there's nothing that can really do that as far as I'm aware. I know if you've got a lot of money, you can go get some surgeries like Elon Musk did to get some hair back or what have you. But I think when I was I think it was for a play. I ended up having to shave my head, and I thought, this isn't so bad actually. Why don't I just try this out? And it was the best thing I could do because it just took all the anxiety away of like what's it going to be like when I'm bald? I'm like, let's just skip to being bald. Let's just go for it. And the weight that lifted off my shoulders psychologically when I did that was massive. So even though I would love to have a full head of lush hair, I don't. And so I've just embraced it and I'll never look back. I like it a lot. I really appreciate it. It's freeing to go, you know what? Just cut it off. Let's not have it. And it feels great too, especially like after you get it buzzed off and then you walk outside and you feel the hair you feel the wind on your scalp. It's fantastic.
Well, let's talk about hair in other places. Okay. Because you and I have a mutual friend who's actually been on this show before, who literally when he takes off his shirt and gets into the water, you can really see his pronounced hair and it's in the shape of a tank top. Like it gets thinner around the shoulders and there's a single strap that goes over each shoulder and it connects, like up at the upper neck in the back.
The person that we're talking about, does he like talk like that?
Shirt of hair.
Yeah.
I am not a particularly hairy person. So like I've got a little tuft of chest hair. I don't have a hairy back. I don't have a hairy butt. I've got normal amount of hair on my legs and hands and arms. I guess I don't consider myself like a very hairy person, but I know people who are extremely hairy, and I've asked them a couple times, like, well, how do you feel about being really hairy? And they're like, I never think about it. I never comes up. I never have to worry about it. But I've also known people who like they're like, yeah, my best friend shaves my back once a month or when I'm going out to the club.
Right. I've had girlfriends who were like, no, I prefer a guy who's very hairy. Like for some people, it's the thing.
Really, like Sasquatch style.
I mean, I think once you get to like Robin Williams hairy, then it's that kind of pushing it a little bit. So maybe within reason. But yeah, ain't nothing wrong with little body hair.
Yeah.
Or a lot of body hair. Or no body hair, you know? All bodies are beautiful.
And that's the thing is we really are at a point now where you can do whatever you want. Like if you don't want to shave your legs, don't shave your legs. If
Hell yeah.
you know, and I think it's so neat that we've kind of arrived at this point. And you know what? Like if I don't like it, who cares? It's not my body. You know, you do you, I'll do me. We'll be just fine. Now, that being said, I waxed one of my friends once, who's actually been on our show several times. Good old Phil Goodell. We had
that's a hairy man right there.
He's a hairy dude, and we had a bit on the radio where we were going to send him out on all these dates leading up to Valentine's Day, and so we found an empty desk in the building, and we made him lay down, and we did like a 40-year-old virgin style like waxing, and his nipple started to bleed. So again, going full circle, I am not about nipple damage, and it was one of those things where I'm like, well, how did it feel? And I think everyone assumes that when they when they wax, they're like, oh, like it'll really show off my toning. Well, if you don't have any tone underneath, there's no point. Like, let the hair cover the things you want to, keep secret.
Yeah, it's like a t-shirt in the pool.
Right, exactly. And I was that kid for a long time, as we discussed in my episode where I'm happy about my body finally in my life. But man, oh man, there was something so much fun about waxing that kid. I had such a good time.
You just like causing him pain.
It wasn't just the pain. It was sort of like just I think it was the fun of like, you're gonna let us do this, and we're gonna try and see what comes of it. And it was a blast. And also I think he was expecting to see something different in the mirror than what he ultimately saw, which again is, it's cool. It's what happens. We're all human beings. We all do what we need to do. So, did
he go on dates?
He did not. That we ended up, that station ended up getting canceled.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like, not for anything I can't catch a break.
Yeah, not for anything inappropriate. It was sort of like, nope, we're gonna take this in a different direction.
That's sort of the life of radio, except for KFGO, it seems. Yeah,
KFGO's been around for a long time, and it'll continue to be around. But even that, it has changed with with the decades. And everything should. I was just chatting with a coworker this morning about how, this saying, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
You've heard that before?
Yeah.
It doesn't 100% make sense to me. Like, I know, like, you were bathing the baby in the bathwater and you're going to pour it out the like window or something like that, but you take the baby out first. But it's like, did someone do that at some point? And so then we've come up with this saying, like this cautionary tale to parents, or are we just like assuming like, whoa, hey, careful, you don't want to throw the baby. Anyway, I digress. So there are so many things today that we are going back and enjoying from a yesteryear. So like the radio plays I've been doing, these aren't new. This is how we had entertainment for decades.
Right.
And there, even the way people are approaching their commercials with, just like a simple, like, we're proud to be doing business here, and, we'd love you to stop in and say hello, rather than like a fancy jingle or something like that. It just, to me, it's amazing. It is amazing.
There's a lot of audio theater going now too, like in podcasting. Like there's DC and Marvel have been producing podcast adventures of their characters lately. I haven't dove into those yet, but I think it's coming back in that it's theater of the mind. It's like reading a book where you have almost an infinite budget to do whatever you want to do. So like the plays you guys have been making, those have casts of what, 20 people?
Yeah, one of them. I'm trying to pare that down because that's a logistical nightmare.
But still, like imagine trying to do that, but with video.
Oh God. It'd be so time consuming.
Right.
And the thing about it is too, the difference in the mediums. So with video, you're worried about audio, visual, lighting, costuming, all that. If for podcasting and for radio dramas, you just have to concentrate on the audio. Now that means like sound effects, things like that, but it's a whole other ball game than when you're trying to manage a whole crowd of people. And also you're like, oh, why did you eat a biscuit? Now you got crumbs all over your face. Come on, man.
You just reminded me of something I wanted to ask you about. How are you feeling today after your day yesterday where you were judging? Was it ribs or was it BBQ?
So the North Dakota Barbecue Championships, this was the 10th annual. It's a backyard style barbecue competition. And that means it is not KCBS, which is Kansas City Barbecue Society. It's not a qualifier for them, but they also don't follow the strict rules of the KCBS. So, for example, anyone who wants to be in this competition can compete. And there were professional barbecue teams. It's not like a Famous Dave's or something like that. Like these companies don't show up, but someone who like Beer Belly Barbecue out of Barnesville, Minnesota will show up with their smoker and maybe they've made a rig. There also might be a mom and pop who just cook on a Weber kettle grill and are trying their best. There's 4 categories. There's chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket.
Okay.
And so this is the way it goes. Chicken's first, then it goes ribs, then it was pork and brisket. The pork could be pulled pork. It could be, they call it like the money muscle. So like a pork loin, something like that. Ribs, pretty standard. It's you can either cook, you're cooking pork ribs and you can cook St. Louis style or baby back. For chicken, you can pick any piece of the chicken. Most common is like a thigh. Okay. Sometimes people will do drumsticks, but not very often. And then for brisket, brisket's brisket. You choose the cut of meat, but your presentation can change. So they might include burnt ends. They might include something, special in there. And so there were 26 teams. And they all turn in at different times. So like chicken comes in at 11:15 and then ribs come in at 12:15 or 12:30. And so I spent 5 hours tasting delicious meats and some not so delicious meats. I don't taste all 26 teams. What they do is they have 4 judging tables of 6 judges. And I taste 7 samples and then another table tastes 7 samples and every team gets judged. But so the best ribs, the ribs that won may not have been a rib that I tried. So This is my 9th time judging. The only other person who's judged all 10 times at the North Dakota Barbecue Championships is Britta Nelson, who's been on our podcast many times. And so it's always an honor to sit at her table because she's sort of the queen of the day. And it was a ton of fun, but I will say this. We had a kind of a scandal yesterday, which is a team brought ribs that were they get inspected. All the meat gets inspected to make sure nothing was injected into it or brined or anything like that. But they don't one of the things they don't look at is like, is this meat good? And so a team cooked rotten ribs.
Oh,
and this team must have known that these were rotten. I mean, I imagine they taste tested them before they brought them in, but they smelled funky and off. And so that was the first time that a team has ever turned in something that was just awful. And truth be told, they could have gotten, if they realized, oh God, we got bad ribs, they could have gone to the grocery store and got new ribs and started over, hoping to get them in time, which would have been much smarter than serving rotten meat.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, come on, that's like, you're going to get people sick.
Right. And then, another thing is I had one, what was it? It was in the chicken category where their smoker must have gone out. So they tried to reignite it. Well, this is a pro tip for all of you people out there barbecuing. If you are going to reignite your coals or your wood chips or something, do not have the meat on the grill when you restart the fire if you're using lighter fluid, because the initial burn from lighter fluid starting those coals is the burning off of the fuel, and that taste goes directly into the meat.
Yep, you can taste that immediately.
Yeah, big time. It's a classic mistake, right? Classic mistake from a novice griller or barbecuist. And so it was a good day yesterday. Pro tip from years past, I bring 4 things of Tupperware because you get to keep the stuff you don't eat. And you're only supposed to take 1 bite of each rib and 1 bite of chicken. And like, you're supposed to kind of feel out how the taste and everything goes from there. So I end up with a lot of doggy bags afterwards, and it's fun. I love it. It is just a blast. Now, that being said, I was ungodly uncomfortable when I was at the movie shoot with you because I went immediately after, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to get the meat sweats, and my pores are pretty much just like, it's straight barbecue sauce coming out of these things.
I could read it in your body language right as you walked in. I was like, I think the first thing I said to you was, how you feeling, bud? I could just tell JJ was digesting some bad stuff.
Yeah. And, like my footsteps are slower. Like, it's just like, so it's rough stuff, but it was damn tasty. I'm always up for it. And I've got a fun table of people, Britta, her dad, Scotch, one of our first guests on the show, a guy named Tank McNamara, Rusty Halverson, who's an egg reporter. It's just a good feeling. Like, I love it. It's a lot of fun. So thank you for asking about that.
Yeah. How often are you judging food in official capacities?
Quite a bit, actually. So I am Kansas City Barbecue Society certified. I took a weekend class in the Twin Cities many, many years ago, and you just pay your dues. There's a little bit of continuing education that goes into it. But
what are some of the finer points of that? Like, what is it you have to understand to be certified?
Oh, there's a lot. So, for example, brisket, the smoke ring on a brisket. You familiar with the smoke ring?
No.
Okay, so a well cooked brisket will have kind of this like pink outer layer or like darker outer layer before you hit the like the inside of the meat. And so that is the layer where the smoke essentially like permeates the most.
Okay.
And so you get this nice ring around the meat when you slice it open and serve it. Well, like a tip from the Kansas City Barbecue Society is you're not supposed to include that in your judging when you're judging appearance because you can chemically create that smoke ring.
Ah, okay.
And so like that's one of those things.
Basically like the equivalent of doping.
Yeah, very much so. Rules for Kansas City Barbecue Society. You have to take a bite of everything. So even if someone comes in and it looks awful and there's like a bunch of flies on it, you still have to take a bite of that thing.
Wow.
To understand, in our cooking one that we did not too long ago, I talked about the biggest misconception about ribs is that they, if they're like, these are fall off the bone ribs, that you've overdone your ribs. That's actually overdone. You should be able to bite into it and have to kind of tug away from the bone a little bit, and it should have a perfect bite mark in there. And so, it's just, it's all about, this is, some of the things that we appreciate and think is really great is because, well, yeah, of course, these big, huge companies are going to push that fall off the bones better because you can just stick it in a roaster and not have to care for it and take it out. Like you can keep the same ribs cooking for 6 days and keep, shelling them out to the money mouths that come into your chain restaurant. So to me, like, yeah, that's why we've heard this over and over and over again. So anyway, so it was a wonderful time. I had a blast. In fact, I got a bunch of leftovers I'm going to eat later today, which I'm very excited about.
If you ever get invited to do a boneless wings judging contest, could you put in a good word for me?
Sure will.
I would love to do that.
And what's funny is, so they're trying to get a steak cook-off competition going in Fargo. And that's one that I've been like really anxious about for years. And there's a couple of groups, because some of the groups who do these big barbecue competitions, they hate brisket at this point. They've had enough brisket for the rest of their lives, but they still want to win. So they got to cook brisket. So other kind of barbecue competitions, people are looking at like, okay, so let's do a burger competition. Let's do a steak.
Yeah.
Let's do a chicken wing And so to me, we're just at the very beginning of a beautiful journey down a meaty street.
I want to see a cheesesteak competition because no one does cheesesteaks in this town correctly, and I'd like to get them all in one place and give them a piece of my mind.
We were told yesterday that we were the table of death for these teams because we judged everything so harshly. And truthfully, there were some people who were like, "Oh, here I'm gonna on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give this a 9 for appearance." And I'm like, a 9? That's a 6.
When you are judging it, are you doing it right in front of the person who cooked it?
No, it's a double blind, in fact. So
that's okay. That's
only
good.
one person knows. Even the person who's tabulating the votes doesn't know which team is which, and we don't know which team is which.
Got it.
So
okay.
it's kind of an interesting setup for that. And they get their scorecards afterwards without our names on them. They've removed all the judges' names. But there are people, because like if you scored really, really low and you were really proud of your meat, you kind of want to know, like, okay, so what happened? What wasn't good about this? And being able to read that judge's card. Now, the one that we do in Fargo, because it's a backyard, is strictly just like numbers based. So you're judged on appearance, you're judged on taste, and you're judged on tenderness. Scale of 1 to 9. If you want to put anything below a 6, you need to talk to one of the, organizers, because that's like saying this is garbage.
Got it.
And so
gotcha.
I did that. I pulled my people aside a little bit, and I'm like, I'm going to grade this a 4. This tenderness is ridiculous. You kidding me?
Can you put down just a DQ, a disqualification, say if they give you rotten meat?
So they're the ones who, like, the organizers are the ones who will end up ultimately disqualifying. Here's something so when you turn in your meat, you turn it in a plain styrofoam box.
Okay.
And if you've done anything to essentially hint at what your team is, so like if you put all the pork in the shape of a pig, or if you add garnish or something like that in this particular competition, they'll disqualify you for that. Because
so you don't even know whose meat you're tasting.
No, I never will. I'll never know what teams I actually judged.
That's smart. That makes sense.
Yeah, and because I know people who competed yesterday.
Right.
And so I don't want to show favoritism. And I also, for some reason, like I would feel really bad if I were like, hey man, your ribs were garbage.
Right. If someone took their ribs and spelled out KFGO, JJ.
Right.
Like,
exactly. And like someone at another table is testing it and be like, I hate that JJ. So I also like, it's interesting too, because it's one of those situations where for some reason people drop out. Like they're like, oh, I can't, I'm doing something else on that Saturday. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I actually moved my wedding because of this competition. And once you're in, and they will keep you on the list until kingdom comes. And so
you did one of the most brilliant things at your wedding that if I ever get hitched, I'm going to copy it, which was you did a meatball buffet.
Yeah. Wasn't that great?
That was the best thing.
Why aren't we focusing on like doing some potluck stuff with our group of friends?
Yeah, no kidding. That's true. I would bring chips because I suck at cooking all things.
But you could organize with somebody else who is good at cooking and be like, listen, help me do this, and tell me what to buy and we'll make it. And
that's true. Actually, on this film shoot, Amanda, who is the significant other of Ben, one of the producers, she cooked a lot of the meals for the core crew. I have never eaten that well. Like that much delicious, amazing food on a shoot. So shout out to Amanda for that.
And see, you could grab Amanda and be like, listen, I want to do a meatball spread. Help me.
Yeah, totally. There's got to be a honey barbecue. There's got to be a teriyaki. I even like meatballs in buffalo sauce.
Yeah.
I think the one I'm not going to do is the what's that one that you can get a Swedish. I'm not down with the Swedish. No
Really?
Swedish meatballs. Yeah.
Well,
I've only had.
Whoa. Why?
I just think it's weird. It doesn't taste right.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not into it. Not into Swedish meatballs.
You want a pro tip on meatballs?
Sure.
Get yourself an air fryer, make them in the air fryer, and then they're nice and crispy on the outside.
Ooh.
Oh my God, man, they're amazing. I can't believe that Swedish meatballs and you are not because you love mashed potatoes.
I love mashed potatoes, but yeah, Swedish meatballs don't do it for me. All the ones I've had in the past just haven't done it for me. When you're saying air frying, are you talking about using like ground meat to make your own, or are you talking frozen meatballs?
I'm talking either.
Okay, nice.
I mean, obviously
nice.
You cook them a little bit longer if they're raw and they're not coming out of the bag.
Right.
But
when I make my move next month, I think I was thinking about an air fryer being my housewarming gift to myself, which I might do. We'll see.
That's an excellent choice. I'm very pro air fryer.
Sweet.
And maybe you can invite me up and we could try a bunch of meatballs together.
Sure. JJ, now, this podcast has made me hungry.
Go good. As we end this one, I want to ask this. So the new place you're moving to currently has a hot tub. Will it continue to have a hot tub, or will it no longer have a hot tub?
So I actually had just changed my mind about that 2 days ago. I was going to say no hot tub, but my back has been killing me over the past 2 weeks because of all the work I've been doing and the stress I've been under. I've always had a like bad muscle tension in my neck and back, to the point that it actually will cause weird head pressures if I don't get it taken care of. I get a massage as often as I can afford it, but I need like a 2-hour deep tissue massage, which gets pretty expensive. And I was thinking, God, I mean, the rate I'm going, how am I going to be able to afford to keep my back loose? And I thought, well, you know what? Moving into a place with a hot tub, maybe the hot tub is going to be the key. So now I'm thinking I'm going to keep the hot tub and run it throughout the winter, and maybe use it once or twice a week, just for that back maintenance that I clearly am at the point in my age where I need.
I like that idea. Shall we have a meatball and hot tub party?
Yes, and we'll podcast during it.
Yo, okay, yeah, sold. I love it. Okay. In fact, let's just end the podcast right here on that promise. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. When I use a hose for watering plants, sometimes I imagine that it's my house's blood.